We are talking about what type of leader you should avoid in ministry and in church especially. Listen, when you have your boss and your job and all that stuff, there's not a whole lot you could do about that. But when it comes to ministry leaders, you have to be very particular in who you follow, because not every titled leader is a good leader. Just because somebody has a title or a position does not mean that they are actually good for you in your walk with the Lord. If we're not aware, we can find ourselves following leaders who would actually hinder our growth and hinder us from walking into our purpose. Leadership is a biblical concept. It's right to follow leaders. It's right to have somebody you're accountable to making sure that you're watching their life, they're watching over your life. So all that is good. It's good to have leaders. It's good to have authority. We're not coming against that idea because that would be rebellious against Scripture. We're not talking about not having any leaders. I'm telling you, there are certain kinds of leaders that you should avoid, because even though the Bible gives us clear instruction to follow leaders, it matters that we follow good leaders. So today, I'm going to give you 5 traits of an unhealthy and even a harmful leader that you need to avoid. Now listen, if your leader has all of these 5 traits, or maybe even you as a leader has all of these 5 traits, then it's time to make a change, and I would make changes today. Whether you have to leave leadership, you have to have a tough conversation, or you have to change some things about yourself as a leader. Either way, you have to make some decisions, and I think you're going to base it on what I'm going to share with you today. But make sure you stick around to the end of this stream, because at the end of the stream, I'm going to give you some healthy leadership traits so you can find a good leader to follow. Make sure that you are walking with people that are going to help you in your pursuit for God's will in your life. I want to thank everybody online for watching. If you're live with us, go ahead and say what's up in the chat. I see Velostella here. Jesus Gives Eternal Life is the channel name. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching. Appreciate it. I'm sorry again about the difficulties as we started the stream. Okay, 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 1 through 3. We're going to read a quick scripture. It says, "So I exhort the elders among you as a fellow elder and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, as well as a partaker in the glory that is going to be revealed. Shepherd the flock of God that is among you, exercising oversight, not under compulsion, but willingly, as God would have you, not for shameful gain, but eagerly, not domineering over those in your charge, but being examples to the flock." What's up, Amber Marquez? Thank you for jumping on. All right. So clearly the Bible is instructing leaders to be good leaders, to not be domineering, not being controlling, but really to look out for those that they are following. So there's nothing wrong with making sure that you're following a leader who's following biblical principles. So here are 5 things that if your leader has these, or your ministry head has these things, you have to make sure that you pay close attention. If you have these traits, make sure you change them. So number one of the unhealthy traits for a harmful leader is this: they command loyalty instead of cultivating it. They demand loyalty instead of creating a culture of loyalty and honor. Good leaders do not need to demand that you follow them. Good leaders don't need to make you feel bad and make you fearful so you follow them. Demand and control like that really comes from harmful leaders and unhealthy leaders. This looks like manipulation. It looks like bribes. It looks like fear-based control. This is what an unhealthy leader does. You better follow me. If you don't follow me, you're not in God's will. Have you ever heard any of your leaders say that? I've actually heard it before, and I think that's a crazy statement to make. If you're not following me, you're not following the will of God. That comes from a harmful and unhealthy leader. These kinds of phrases like, if you don't come to my church, if you're not a part of my ministry, if you challenge my ideas, then you're in rebellion, you're outside of God's will. This is all commanding loyalty. Basically saying, like, if you're not loyal to me, then you're not loyal to God. That is a commanding leader. That is somebody demanding loyalty and not cultivating it. How do you cultivate loyalty? Well, you create a buy-in for your vision. You build a culture of honor and loyalty to one another. You show loyalty to people in your ministry. You show loyalty as a leader, and I believe you'll gain that back from people who are following you. But a harmful leader demands it, and they make you feel bad for not giving it. They make you feel bad for having your own life, your own time, and really having freedom if you're not paying attention to what they're doing. This is wrong, it's harmful, and it's unhealthy. So bad leaders, harmful leaders, destructive leaders, toxic leaders, however you want to claim it, however you want to define it, one of their traits is they demand loyalty instead of cultivating a culture of loyalty. Number two, what is a trait of a harmful leader? Number two is they place personal success over kingdom success. What does this look like? This means that it matters more to them that their ministry, their church, their organization, their Bible study, whatever they're doing is more successful than anybody else's ministry. They want to be the one that's the best, the biggest, and what they'll do is they'll prioritize their own personal success and their personal gain over kingdom success. So when leaders have that kind of motivation to say, I want mine to be better, what they do is they begin to look at people as resources and not partners. They begin to look at people that are attending as just numbers and not actually people with their own lives, their own callings, their own purpose. They want to align everybody to do only what they want to do. They want to say things like, I need you to help me with my vision so my vision can grow, without even a concern about somebody else's purpose, about somebody else's gifting, about somebody else's destiny. They see people with gifts and all they think is, how can their gifting grow my ministry? Not how can I help them grow in their gifting? You see the difference, right? Their personal success matters more than kingdom success. So if somebody comes in, they're gifted, they're not concerned about God working in their life to build their gifting up. They're concerned about their gifting coming into their ministry or their organization and building up their vision, their personal success. Another sign of this trait of personal success over kingdom success is that the leader always has to get the credit. Anything that gets done, anything that happens within that organization, they have to be the ones who's on display. They have to be the one who gets the credit. That was my idea. That was something that I implemented. That was all me and my training. That's all pride speaking, and that's somebody who's more concerned about personal success. Another sign of this trait is the leader becomes a lid and not a covering. What's the difference? A covering will help you to succeed and help you grow, but will make sure that you are staying right with the Lord. That will make sure you're staying accountable. That will make sure you're growing in a healthy way, that you have a healthy head on your shoulders, that you have a healthy perspective, again, a foundational relationship with the Lord. They help you grow. So that's a covering. A lid is somebody who will say, you can only grow this far. I'm not going to allow you to outgrow me. I'm not going to allow you to outgrow my organization. I'm not going to allow you to outgrow my church and my ministry. I'm going to become a lid to you. I'm going to cap you off where I think that your gifting ends. This again comes from this idea of their own success. I want to be the one to get the credit. So anybody who would do anything better than me, I'm going to put a lid on them. So leaders like this, what they do is they refuse to elevate leaders. They refuse to elevate gifted people because they don't want them to be elevated above their own success. It's very harmful. It's very unhealthy. It's very toxic. And it's something that you definitely have to look out for, is leaders who care more about personal success over kingdom success and the success of the people within their own ministries. Number 3, unhealthy, harmful leaders, they avoid correction from others. Proverbs 12 verse 15 says, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. Proverbs 19:20, listen to advice and accept instruction that you may gain wisdom in the future. A harmful leader, a toxic leader, somebody that you shouldn't follow, will not ever receive instruction. There's nobody in their life that can correct them and tell them what to do. There's no one in their life that can shape their thinking. Once they're set in their ways, there's nobody that can stop them. To me, this is very harmful. It's harmful because toxic leaders usually treat people badly. They usually don't know how to handle certain situations. They don't know how to work with people. And so when they're working with people, they can come across very mean. They can come across demanding. Their whole culture in their organization may be unhealthy, but that leader will never hear instruction from anybody else. There's no outside voice that can speak into that leader and say, hey, the way you're treating that person is wrong. The way that you're going about this organization is wrong. It's unhealthy. It's ungodly. It's unbiblical. If they don't have anybody like that in their life, that's a sign that it's a harmful leader, not a healthy one. for me, I have a pastor in my life that if I'm crazy, I always tell our church leaders in our church, like, if I ever go crazy, you can go talk to my pastor and he can correct me, right? Like, if I ever start preaching things that are ungodly, if I start treating people in an ungodly way, there's somebody in my life who can speak into that, bring correction to me and guidance to my life. That I feel like that's a very healthy thing to do as a leader. Now, if you're under a ministry or under a leader and there's nobody that you can go to above that leader, that's a very, very good sign that it's a harmful leader. If there's nobody that you can say, man, if they start going crazy, if they start saying things that I don't understand and I disagree with and doesn't sound biblical, is there anybody that you can go to that's above them? Is there anybody that you can talk to that they would be able to correct them? If there's not, that again is a sign of a harmful leader. I hope this is helping you. I hope this is blessing you. I see a couple people on the chat. Again, I appreciate you guys for being out on the stream with us. If it's helping you, if it's even convicting you, why don't you go ahead and like the stream, like the video, and leave a comment below. Okay. So number 4, what's the fourth trait of a harmful and unhealthy leader? Is they walk in insecurity. This looks like when they have to talk bad about other ministries in order to elevate themselves. That's insecurity. It might sound like confidence, it might sound like pride, it might sound like, all these other different traits, but in reality, if somebody has to talk down to somebody else in order to feel better about themselves, that's based out of insecurity. Insecure leaders will constantly do things like that. Well, their ministry is not as big as ours, and they're not doing as much as we are doing. So we're doing better. We're doing more. That's insecurity, right? And not only that, bad leaders that are insecure don't only talk about other ministries. They put down people in their own ministry. We talked about elevating leaders a couple of points ago. An insecure leader will never elevate a stronger leader than them. They want to make sure they're the strongest person in the room with the best ideas, because otherwise their insecurity will get the best of them. So an insecure leader will rarely have good leaders around them, will rarely have stronger leaders around them because of their insecurity. They push strong leaders away. Insecure leaders will literally push them away, in maybe not like physically, but they'll do things in the organization to not allow the stronger leader and the leader with wisdom to be able to flourish. They'll keep them quiet, they'll keep them hidden so that they don't elevate above them because of their insecurity. The problem with this is that insecure leaders, as they're pushing these strong leaders away, it's really hindering the organization. And so when there's no growth in the organization, when there's no new leaders being built up, strong leaders being built up, a lot of times, unfortunately, it has to do with an insecure leader, because they don't want to raise people up. Because if they raise people up, then they feel like they're going to be pushed down. One thing I love about my pastor back at our home church in California is he's all about elevating people. That's what he does. He doesn't want the spotlight. He doesn't want to be the guy that gets the credit. He doesn't want any of that. He elevates other people above himself. And to me, that's such a healthy trait of a leader. And if your leader has this insecure trait, that's something that they have to correct. And maybe you're a leader and you have this insecurity within inside of you. You're like, man, I don't want stronger leaders around me. I don't want people with better ideas than me. I want to be the one. I want to be the guy or the girl that brings it. Listen, I get it. It's passion, but that's pride and that's insecurity. And the best thing for you as a leader and for your organization and for your ministry and all that, the best thing is to bring stronger leaders around you, even ones that are stronger than you. I think one of the best things about having the church that we have is that a lot of the people in the room, they're stronger than me. They're wiser than me. They've been doing it longer than me. And I'm able to glean from that wisdom. And so insecurity will really hinder your growth as a leader and as an organization. And if you're in a ministry with an insecure leader, then that's a trait that you definitely have to look out for, and you should avoid that. So it's toxic. It's not good. All right. Number 5, as we get into the last one, and then remember, I'm going to give you some traits of good leaders. And then I actually went online on Instagram and I asked if anybody had leadership questions. We got a couple of them, so I'm going to answer them here on the live stream. If you have any questions about leadership or even about ministry, anything like that, go ahead and leave it in the chat. I'll answer them at the end of the stream. All right. Number 5, the 5th trait of harmful leaders is that they operate in pride. Harmful leaders operate in pride. It kind of sums up everything we had talked about. It's all about them. They have the best ideas. Nobody can challenge them. They never make a mistake. Harmful leaders, they never make mistakes. It's amazing. Everything they do is right. Everything they say is right. There's nothing they would go back and say, man, I really messed up there. A prideful leader will never apologize to you. Even when they've hurt you, even when they said things to you that bothered you, a prideful leader will never apologize. They'll say things like, well, I said it so that you could learn. I'm trying to build you up. I'm trying to make you stronger. And I get it. I understand all that idea. Like, man, we can't, baby everybody. But there are times as leaders, we need to apologize. That is a good thing for leaders, as pastors, as leaders of organizations, that we step down and we apologize to people that we've hurt, that we've offended, that we've disrespected. Just because you're the leader or they're the leader, that doesn't mean they can disrespect people. That doesn't mean they can be rude to the people that are following them. And if they're rude and disrespectful, then they should apologize. But a prideful leader will never apologize. I look at the way that I have to treat my kids, right? I have 4 kids. And even my wife, I have to treat my whole family like this. I have my wife, my 4 kids, my son Liam, he's 7, my daughter Rylan, she's 5, Lucas, my second son is he's 3, he's gonna be 4 pretty soon. Then we have a 1-year-old. But as they've been growing up, as a leader of my home, I had to learn that I even apologized to my kids. Even when they were little, my son was 4 or 5 years old, and I'd be apologizing to him if I got rude with him, if I got upset with him and it wasn't his fault, or maybe I just overreacted over a situation. I had to apologize to him, because that's what a humble leader does. That's what a good leader does. And if you want to be a good leader, you have to do what good leaders do. And so prideful leaders will never do that. They'll never get down and apologize to people. They'll never allow anyone to really question their strategies, right? They come up with a plan. It won't be, hey, what do you guys think? Let me get some opinions. It'll always be, well, this is what we're doing, and I don't really care what anybody else says. They may not say it that way, but that's how they act. And so let's go through this quickly. The 5 traits of an unhealthy leader and somebody that you should definitely avoid. Listen, I'm not ever trying to cause division in the church. I'm never trying to cause, an exodus of churches. But there are unhealthy leaders, and if you want to be the best Christian that you can be, and if you want to walk into your God-given destiny, then you need good leaders in your life. Don't be loyal to people that are not good leaders. I've seen this for so many years, that people will never leave a church, they'll never leave a leader, they'll never leave a ministry, because it's like this blind loyalty. Listen, if it's unhealthy, if you're not growing, if it's toxic, then it's not good for you to be there. It's not good for you to follow an unhealthy and harmful leader. So let's go over these 5 traits one more time, and then we'll get into some good traits and questions, and then we will call it. All right. They command loyalty instead of cultivating it. They demand loyalty. They don't create the culture of it. Number 2, they place personal success over kingdom success. Number 3, they avoid correction from others. There's nobody that can speak into them. Number 4, they walk in insecurity. And number 5, they operate in pride. It's their pride is on display 24/7. Okay. As I get into these last traits of what I think helpful and good leaders look like, I do want to say a couple of traits that I wrote down that didn't really make the list, but I think you should still watch out for them. So they use fear to manipulate their teams. They use guilt to make people feel bad for not doing what they want, and they'll never let teams have their own free time or rest. And the last one that I didn't make a whole list about, I didn't put as a point, but definitely an issue, is a leader that has control issues is a very harmful and unhealthy leader. So obviously there's a whole list of unhealthy traits and things you got to look out for. And remember, no leader is perfect. So just because they have some of these things, that doesn't mean that you have to leave. It doesn't mean you have to run away. But these traits are good signs that there has to be either some kind of change. Maybe you just need to have a tough conversation with them. A good leader will hear you out. If you sit down with them, say, hey, listen, these are some things that you do that I think are unhealthy. And so maybe you need a tough conversation. Maybe you as a leader need to change some of these things. But no leader is perfect, but these are a lot of good signs, these are a lot of traits of harmful and unhealthy leaders. So I do want to give some good traits of good leaders, and I'll go through this quickly and then a couple of questions. If you have questions online, don't forget to write them down in the chat so I can get to them before we end the stream. So here's some traits of good leaders: is they push you and empower you to fulfill your own calling and not just their own. I think this is such a good sign of a leader, is that they want the best for the people that are following them. They want the best for them. I think of somebody like my brother, right? So I work with David Hernandez Ministries. I started probably in, a few years back, and he was always about elevating people. It's always been about, man, if somebody comes and gets hired with the ministry, or somebody volunteers at the ministry, it's always about raising them up, making sure they're doing what God has called them to do. I mean, even what I'm doing right now, being able to pastor and do streams like this, it's because I had a leader like my brother who pushed and empowered people to do what they were called to do, and not just to fulfill his own ministry and his own vision. So that's a good sign of a good leader, is that they empower you to fulfill your own calling and your own destiny. And not only do they empower you, but they resource you to do it. They help you get there, and that's a great sign. Another one is they communicate with clarity and not they communicate with assumption or vague expectations. A good leader they'll always make it clear what they're looking for. They're not going to assume things. They're not going to assume you understood. They're not going to assume people get it. They're going to make sure that the expectations are clear and there are no assumptions. Another one is they operate in love for you. Good leaders truly want the best for you. Good leaders are looking out for the best for you and your family. Something that I like to ask my leaders is, how's your family doing? How are the kids doing? How was your time? How are you spiritually? All these questions, making sure that people are okay, is a sign of a good leader, that they care about you. Here's a good one. A good sign of a good leader that you might not like is they challenge you to be better. They'll push you to be more than you thought you could. Now, these challenges may not always be easy. They might be frustrating or irritating, but a good leader will push you, and they will even correct you when it's uncomfortable, but that's all out of love. That's a good leader. A bad leader is very passive. Hey, do whatever you want. I don't really care. But a good leader steps in, brings correction where they need to. A couple more, and then we'll get on to the questions. Is they cover you, but they don't hinder you. A good leader will cover you in prayer, in love, correction, accountability, but they will not hinder you. And when they don't hinder you, what that builds is trust. And a trusted leader will be able to tell you, hey, this door is a good opportunity, this one is not. And in order to get to that place, they have to build that trust. But a good sign is they cover you and they don't hinder you. And the last one is a good leader is very secure in their own calling, their purpose and their mission. A good leader is secure in it. They don't waver. They're not always changing it up, but they're secure in what God has called them to do. They don't need to put other people down for that. They don't need to talk about other ministries. They press forward and they do what God has called them to do, and they take people with them, and then they empower them to do their own to do their own purpose and their own mission. All right, so that is the teaching for today. Man, I thank you guys for watching again. We have Encounter TV's on watching. What's up? Brianna is on. Brianna Espinoza. What's up, Bree? Resurrection TV, man. Thank you again. You're always watching. I appreciate that. Ruben Vargas. What's up, man? Okay. If there's any questions, leave them below. I got 2 questions from Instagram that I thought were really good, and I think they'll help you. And so the first question is, how do you go about the do as I say but not as I do leader? Man, you're going to find this kind of leader everywhere you go. The guy that do as I say, but not as I do. And I don't think they actually say that. I think it's more so like they tell you what to do, but they're not actually doing it. They lay out these expectations for other leaders, but they don't abide by them in their own life. And so a couple of things that I would make sure that you as a follower, you have the right heart in this, the right motivation, the right perspective, is if somebody has that kind of lifestyle, do as I say, not as I do, if what they're saying is right and what they're saying is good, then you should do it, right? Most people, what they do is when a leader like that comes around, they almost want to do the opposite of what they're saying, just because they feel like, man, I can't trust that guy. I don't want to follow him because he's a bad leader. But listen, if what he's saying is good, then do it. If it's biblical, then do it. But that doesn't mean you have to trust him. That doesn't mean you have to trust them. That doesn't mean you have to go to them for everything. That doesn't mean you have to be loyal to them, because we're loyal to the Word of God. We're loyal to the Lord. We're loyal to the calling He's put on our life. And so a leader like that, if what they're saying is good, then do it. If they are directly over you in authority, and it's been like that for a long time, then I would consider moving on. I would consider leaving. I know that's like blasphemy, especially in the church world. What, you can't leave your church? You can't leave that? Listen, if you got an unhealthy leader and that's the attitude they have, I would consider leaving. I consider going somewhere else where there is healthy leadership. But if they're not like the main leader there, then talk to the main leader, right? Let's say it's another leader, and then the pastor, right? And that leader is the one that has this attitude, then go talk to the pastor. Hey man, this guy is he's hypocritical. He's telling us what to do, but he's not doing it himself. And if it doesn't stop there, then again, I'd consider leaving. And I know that's blasphemy, but that's what I would do. Okay, the last question for today is, how do you handle a rapid decline in team morale? I feel like that's a really good question. How do you handle a rapid decline in team morale? One thing that matters, I feel like matters the most, especially when you're working with volunteers, serve members, churches and all that, is you have to make sure that your teams understand the why, the purpose. Why are we doing this? Why are we dedicating our time? Why are we doing all that we're doing? Why are we showing up Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, whatever the schedule is? You have to get them to understand the why. If there's a lack of morale on your team, it's usually because they don't understand where you're going. They don't understand the vision. And so I think you have to reiterate the vision consistently, constantly. In every meeting you have, every video you do, all the ministries that you're running, make sure everybody knows why they're doing this, right? We're doing this because we want to see souls saved. We're doing this because we want to glorify God. We're doing this because it's what we feel called to do. It's our purpose. Whatever your reason is, whatever your purpose and your why is, you have to communicate that to your teams, because there will be a lack of morale when there's a lack of purpose. If they're just on a routine, just doing and forgetting why it's done, forgetting the purpose behind it, then they're going to forget. When they forget it, they're going to lose that morale. They're going to lose the passion. They're going to lose the purpose. So you got to consistently preach that, consistently teach the culture, the vision, where you're going and all that. And I think too, you have to make sure your team is spiritually rested, physically rested, that you're not just overbearing them with work and no rest. That's unhealthy, and that'll lose morale pretty quickly. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but I think ultimately it comes down to making sure that you are preaching and teaching the vision so they understand the why, because really that's how you get people to buy into what you're doing, right? It goes back to the first one. We don't demand that. We don't demand loyalty. You have to do this, you have to do that. You cultivate it, and you cultivate it by preaching vision. If people understand the purpose and they buy into the purpose, then man, people will work for that. And I think that's it's an amazing thing when you can get people to buy in to purpose and to vision, and that creates morale on a team. All right, quick question here. Is it a red flag if a leader only delegates but does not help put in the work? I think that can be a red flag, but I think sometimes too that when you're delegating a lot of work, that's also work, right? So delegation takes work because you have to make sure it's being done right. You have to make sure people are getting the jobs done. And so I think sometimes it's like a twofold answer, right? Because on the perspective of somebody following, you could look at that and be like, man, they're not doing anything. They're just giving us all this work to do. Which again, I can understand the frustration in that. But then if you go up another level and you see the leader's perspective, they're looking at it like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy making sure all these things are getting done. I think what's more of a red flag than a leader who delegates is a leader who doesn't. A leader who doesn't delegate and does everything themselves, I feel like that's more of a red flag, because that's more about control, and that leader doesn't trust people. But when it comes to a leader that actually delegates, I think that's good. Now, again, on the other side of that, sometimes there are leaders that are lazy and they don't do anything. They just tell everybody else what to do. I do feel like that's unhealthy. I feel like that is a red flag. But you have to be sure that that leader's not doing anything, because sometimes it can seem like that, but that doesn't mean they actually aren't getting things done. But so I guess that takes a little bit of investigation. But is it a red flag if a leader only delegates? I don't think so. I guess, yeah, it does. It is, because you're putting here, if they only delegate, and you're sure that they only delegate, they don't do anything else. Yeah, I think that'd be a red flag. I think that's something to look into for sure. What to do with lukewarm leadership? What to do with lukewarm leadership? Okay, so is this coming from the perspective of you're following leaders that are lukewarm, or you're a part of a lukewarm leadership team, or you're leading a lukewarm leadership team? Because I think all those different layers matter, levels matter. So like if you're following a lukewarm leadership team, I feel like that's a good reason to find another leadership team to follow. If the whole team's lukewarm, but again, that kind of comes down to our own perspective and our understanding of what's actually happening on the leadership team. Sometimes we can assume there's lukewarm leadership just because they're not living how we think they should. So I think if you look at your whole leadership team and you're assuming they're all lukewarm, I almost think you have to kind of have an evaluation of your own perspective. and make sure that you're not just assuming that, but you actually have solid grounds to believe that. If you're on a leadership team and you as a leader are surrounded by lukewarm leaders, then my suggestion would be you get on fire, you start working with passion and zeal, and that's contagious. When somebody is working with passion and zeal and they're loving the leaders, they're assisting them, they're helping them, that's contagious, and that can actually help develop a new culture. Culture is developed by us on the team. So if you're on a leadership team that's lukewarm, then you ask yourself, what am I doing? Or what have I done or not done that's caused us to get to this place of being lukewarm? And that's something that you can address. If you're leading a team that's lukewarm, I think it goes back to the answer of morale. Teach the vision. Make sure that they understand why they're doing what they're doing so that there's passion behind everything they're doing. So those are some good questions. Thank you again for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, man. This was a fun one. I love doing leadership stuff. If you have any questions on leadership, go ahead and leave it in the comments. If you're watching this after the stream is done, make sure to leave a comment. If you have a question, I'll get to it as soon as I can. I usually get to them right away. If you like this content, make sure you like the video, comment below, and subscribe to Reclaim Media. Look, we're going live every Wednesday and every Sunday, and we're in the works with new content that we will release throughout the week. And so make sure you're following us. Make sure you turn on the notifications so that you can be notified every time we go live, every time we upload a video and upload a reel and all that. Again, I appreciate you. Thank you for helping this channel grow and continue to grow. And we will keep doing what God has called us to do because of your help and your support. Thank you again. I'll see you next week.